Today class, I am recording this lecture video as a substitute and as an alternative for our discussions. This topic, the discussion that will be part of our third examination, semi-final exam. So we are going to be talking about public speaking, its tenets, its elements, or what is public speaking basically in general. So as I am recording this lecture video, I am in a public area. So you might want to disregard the noise if you hear any and focus on the sound of my voice. Also, I am encouraging everybody to write down the most important parts of the discussions, the gist of the topic that I will be talking about in this particular discussion or lecture. So as we continue and as we begin, let's talk about what is public speaking. According to George Chesson, the human brain is a wonderful thing. It starts working the moment you're born and never stops until you stand up to speak in public. So basically, this irony of a statement tells that so we need to go. And then aside, when we are in front of a public, ready to speak, mawala sa concentration, but which is very true in most cases. Therefore, as we continue, we are going to be discussing about our what we're going to do with effective public speakers. Now, the aim of this game is to speak for a full 60 seconds when you randomly select the topic without any word hesitation, which means pause longer than 3 seconds. Repetition, you say the same words or phrases repeatedly or over and over again. And deviation, going completely off the given topic. So I want you to take note of these three elements because ultimately this will determine what are the possible things that will hinder us from becoming effective public speakers. Okay. Here are the different topics that you're going to choose: cake or ice cream. Smiles, Valentine's, wait, very political, not in English, to give or to receive, mother or father. Okay. Now, let's talk what is public speaking. What's really public speaking in general? Sa istorya sa tabangan sa nagkatao. Sa rakta pagkastorya that is public speaking. But if we're going to understand further what is public speaking, then we should understand that it is a formal face-to-face communication method wherein the person or the persons uses the medium of speech to inform or to influence a group of listeners or an audience. Therefore, when we talk about public speaking, there must be planning and preparation, the positive non-verbal communications, as well as the showcase of confidence in order for us to deliver well on the message that we're trying to come across to our listeners or to our audience. Now, in the planning and preparation stage, we must all go through this. This is 90% of the public speaking activity in general. Therefore, before you can start to plan and prepare the message and the structure for your public speaking activity, you will consider your purpose, your audience, and your timings. These are the three basic considerations when we plan and when we prepare for our public speaking engagement. Basta mo mo, anong storya mo kasi kabag? Kinsa yung audience? Is it a group of professionals? Is it a group of students? Is it a group of leaders? Is it a group of specific, members of society, etc., etc.? And what is your time? Say, for example, you're given 30 minutes to speak about a particular topic that you are deemed to have interest and deemed to have expertise. So you need to make sure that your timing is impeccable in order for you to be able to deliver well and comprehensively what your topic is all about and what your purpose as well as to who you are delivering it to. This also means that you can inform or influence an audience if it is delivered in a structured manner. Therefore, the best way to ensure or the best way to ensure that your public speaking activity is structured is to plan and prepare notes that can be used as a guide when speaking. Take note, class, that your notes should be headings and keywords, bullet point format, and not a word for word script for everything that you want to say. Kasi nga, when you are going to prepare notes, that should only be reminding you of what you have studied, what you are already an expert of when you speak in front of a particular audience. Another is nonverbal communication. So many mga nonverbal communication. These are body languages. These are how you communicate through your nonverbal aspect. This is how you communicate through nonverbal manner, such as your facial expression, your body language, how you stand up, how people see you in front of the stage. Therefore, public speaking isn't just about what you say. It's also about how you say it. Remember, when undertaking any public speaking activity, you need to be mindful of the following. For one, your posture and body movements. Second, your facial emotion or your facial movements and making regular eye contact to your audience. Here's a tip that I received way back ago in college. I think I was in second year, 2015. Now, kung magstorya daw ka po audience, you do not look into the eyes, especially when you intimidated easily. Therefore, you look into the forehead, saan tama na pag-istorya. And para di ka intimidate, di ka mawa kasi focus, you can still be interesting enough to listen to. And more importantly, you can make your message come across our students without being distracted with how they look at you. So that the picture or the tip is to look your audience in the eyes. Tanawa ilaharap is to look your audience in the forehead kaya para you are still making eye contact. And lastly, you need to consider your voice and your pitch and tone. Voice, pitch, and tone, rather. Kung sa magkatas ay mo, boring o baka monotonous na ba, or hyper o kayo, ano sa mga ganha, chat. Now take note that nonverbal communication have these following examples, positive and the negative, wherein positive this is your head is looking up. Negative is your head is looking down. That's a big no-no. Smile is very positive, but frown is very negative. A small hand and arm gestures, well, exaggerated hand and arm gestures is already negative. Small hand, meaning to say you are in control of what you're talking about. Exaggerated hand, it means that you are panicking because you do not know really what you are trying to discuss. Free arms or folded arms. Kung gusto niyo ka, let your arms be free. Ayaw i-fold i-fold kasi nga, you're trying to give them a positive aura, kumbaga, keeping to one area of the stage or wondering about the stage. Kung gusto niyo ganito, stay in one area of the stage. Just make your hands flow freely as much as possible. Kaysa na masikot tuyo sa stage, there is no more cohesion, there is no more without comprehension because what your audience will be remembering is kung asa ka nagtutuyo sa stage. And lastly, making eye contact with various members of the audience. That's very important kasi nga connection is as important with how you are delivering your message as to what you are delivering. So the negative is this only focusing your eye contact on one or two members of the audience. Ayaw pamili. Make sure that you are making eye contact to everybody, not just to specific members of the audience. Another, okay, here are 10 keys to writing a speech. Firstly, make in making your speeches, make a memorable speech. How do we do that? How do we make a memorable speech? The experience of successful speeches tells us that an audience may only remember a single line. Sa kataas-taas yung iingon, pwede isa kailangan mahinuan. For example, when Abraham Lincoln started his Gettysburg Address, it's very famous with this line. 7 years ago, our forefathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Lincoln's line encapsulated the main point of the speech, wherein all men are created equal. Therefore, you need to condense your theme into a 15 to 20 word line and build your speech around the line. There are other figures of speech, but could leave an impression that is worth remembering, such as simile, metaphor, irony, analogy, autonomy, hyperbole, and other figures of speech that could possibly work. You just need to build up one of them or build up on them and use them in the most ideal spot in your speech, such as what Lincoln did. All men are created equal. But if you're going to read the full text, that's not correction. It's just that the last statement was very much encapsulated of the point of his message that all men are created equal, regardless of their race, your economic status, etc. So it really did leave a mark, no, wherein with that one-liner, his speech was built up on and used importantly. His speech was made clear what he wanted to communicate or what he wanted to come across to every single audience that was listening to him. Okay. Another technique or key in writing is to observe a structure in your speech. How do you do this? There are two things an audience expect from a speaker. Number one, a clear direction and a destination. Klaro ang imong agyan, mas klaro ang imong palunod. Kasi nga, your listeners want to know where the speech is heading and the rationale for that direction. Thus, it would be wise to present a short outline of your speech right at the start. While writing and revising your speech, ensure that your speech follows the structure. Kasi nga, nag-structure man ka. So, kailangan i-follow mo structure as a comprehensive speech in order for you to have a clear direction and for people to understand the destination that you wanted to come across or that you wanted to reach. Okay. Now, in doing this, remember that you need to make your speech simple. Less is more. Watch out and delete anything that is of tangent, conflicting, or ambiguous aspect. And you need to, if an item in your speech does not help it, you put across your main message, delete it. Kung dili ganit siya makatabang in making sure that your speech is comprehensive, omit it, delete it. Kasi pag ganahan ka sa linya, delete it. Kasi nga, if it doesn't help you, do not include it. Kasi you're making it simple. And you need to make sure that it is not ambiguous. It is not conflicting with what your points are in the totality of your speech or your message. So you need to observe those patterns. Another element or key is to exploit the opening of your speech. Sir, how do we exploit it, sir? The opening part is crucial. Remember that. We can all agree when we say na lisod magsugod og speech. Therefore, if you could win the attention of your audience right at the beginning, then half of the battle is already won. The rest of the speech could just follow its natural course. Therefore, begin your speech by take note a striking statement or statistics. There are various ways of opening your speech, such as humorous stories related to your speech, or open it with a relevant quotation. Or you could even start with a particular question. So that's how you are going to observe those particular karabitaw attention-seeking statements. Encourage your audience to participate by raising their hands to respond to a question at the start of your speech. But then you're going engage your listeners early, but keep the appetizers of your opening short. Bugbo lang. Since your audience might lose interest if your introduction is too long or too short. Enjoy the honeymoon part of the momentum of your beginning moments with your audience. Therefore, if you've already captured their attention, you can now begin with the right tone. How do you begin with the right tone? Adopting the right tone requires you to answer some basic questions, such as, who are your listeners? Kinsa may maminaw sa inyo? What's the reason for them attending? Unsa may tumo o timuha sa inyo ang panagtapok? And what do they want to hear from you? Unsa man ang ilang gusto madunggan sa mga lecture, an insight, an opinion, an idea, a question. Therefore, if you are able to answer these basic questions, then you are able to write your speech. And by doing so, you need to make sure that you meet the expectations of your listeners, regardless of the nature of your speech, whether it is to educate, to inform, to motivate, to entertain, or even to challenge your audience. Hence, it is important also to note that in reviewing your main points, if they suit the theme or the location, you need to determine it by asking the questions, will my speech inspire and develop the best in my audience? And consider the following small tips. If the setting is professional, make your speech upbeat and inspiring. Kasi nga, people will understand better. If you want to make it, or if you are going to make it boring, people will fall asleep. Kasi nobody likes that. So make your speech a little bit upbeat and inspiring, witty, humorous. If you think that the people will appreciate it, then do it. Para lang yun, they will be able to understand, no? And of course, to determine what is the appetizers, as we call it, quote unquote. appetizers of your speech. Basta may sugudan, uy, katawanan, uy, ligaw. And then you will get the attention already of your listeners. Okay. Now, as you begin with the right tone, such as this, May Angelou, poet, once noted that I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Therefore, your listeners may forget everything you said, but you can consider your speech successful if they leave the hall with a smile and a greater sense of hope and purpose. If you're trying to inspire in your message or in your speech. Okay. Now, another key element that you should consider in making your speech is to be convinced with your own message. Tuo ka sa imong mensahe, dili kay igo ra ka maminaw sa ubang tao. Therefore, a speaker is like a marketing expert. You have to encourage your audience to buy your points. So if your audience or if your listeners do not buy your message, they will not listen to your speech. That's a given. Therefore, your nonverbal cues and style of delivery will ultimately leave the biggest impression among your audience. So you must also believe in what you are talking about in your speech, in your message, in the points that you are making. That's a very big, important consideration. Therefore, there are techniques you can use to connect with your audience, such as cracking a joke about your goosebumps, that wherein your listeners can relate to being nervous about public speaking. Since most speakers experience the same feeling. Share a story about yourself, but make sure that it is relevant, or that leads to your point. Relate some interesting stories about your family because people will be able to reflect that you are trustworthy. Okay. Now, by doing this, you are able to um, remember that you need to write your speech, much like having an interesting conversation with a close friend. Kasi nga, you are not a preacher. So you just need to be yourself. So on stage, be sure that you are at your best and you are that you are, yourself. Kasi nga, people do not need a particular speaker that just talks in front. They need somebody that they can also listen to, that they can also talk to, etc., etc. So it's more like of a conversation rather than a lecture per se or a preach per se. Okay. Now, after you establish that, you also need to establish emphasizing important points in your speech. Therefore, in writing your speech, repeat your important points to leave a lasting impression, such as keywords, phrases, themes. Now, be on the lookout for opportunities to tie up and reinforce earlier important points. And repeat important points just like a refrain in your favorite song. Balik-balik again, so that you will remember and you will understand what they are. Another, connect the important points of your speech by using conjunctions. What are conjunctions? Let's remember that in certain instances, your listeners would not be able to identify what is important in your speech. Kasi kahaba-haba mo naman. That's where you need to use transitional phrases to indicate your intent. For instance, you can use rhetorical questions like, what is the point? That allow assurance. Silence gets the attention of the audience, wherein this technique creates anticipation among them. When you're talking and you feel that the audience attention is lost, just keep silent and ultimately ultimately the silence will catch their attention. By there, you need to jump on the opportunity and of course, give the discussion by giving or probing them. And of course, by using conjunctions in order for you to have transitional phrases so that your listeners may understand better, what you are trying to convey to them as you go along with your speech. Now, in doing so, always remember that you also need to consider integrating some theatrics. In theatrics, we talk about the lectures of Stephen Covey, wherein he would fill a glass bowl nearly full of sand. Thereafter, he would encourage a participant to place rocks into the bowl. In the exercise, rocks represented essentials like family, job, and worship, while the bowl signified the volunteer's time and energy. This technique is very effective because the volunteer couldn't fit every rock in the fold. Therefore, the sand, which represents daily tasks like bringing children to school, shopping, or reading, took up too much space. Something had to be sacrificed, and usually it was something essential. So in this particular lecture, what that you need to keep it short. Sorry. In this particular lecture, you're going to determine how these usage of theatrics emphasize better the message that you're trying to come across, right? Another tip, make sure that you observe the KISS. What's KISS? Keep it short and simple. It is said that the worst crime of public speaking is trying to overdo your speech. Researchers observe that nowadays the audience's attention is shorter relatively. Your listeners have other commitments to attend to. Thus, don't let a very long lecture hold them hostage. Bumuan lang yun. Keep it short and simple. The more you prolong your speech, the more likely they are going to lose their interest. So, summarize your points and conclude your speaking. Remember, they are men of the hour. Dili ikaw ang matagad sa ilang oras, kung dili imong or ilang oras ang imong agtun sa kanon. Remember that. And lastly, you need to conclude your speech with impact. Not just simply say that, you need to have various ways of impressing upon your audience your important message. Now, in doing this, you can explore the use of interesting video clips that abound in the internet. Relevant quotations can also be used to summarize the importance of your message. Now, to recap your biggest point, you can weight a successful story. Okay? On the other hand, you can tie loose ends of your speech together by presenting a diagram, a roadmap, or a conceptual parameter, a recap comment. Or if you are delivering a speech to convince, you should encourage your audience to action. No holds barred. Your concluding statement is what your listeners will, or what your listeners will hear. In the final analysis, you need to discuss when they leave the hall, they will bring something that they can be able to use in their own personal lives. So therefore, when we talk about public speaking class, there are different points that will help you prepare your speech. What are these? We begin with the following. Learn from successful speakers. You go into YouTube, you look up speakers that are very successful in their field. And then you determine your goals. Kung sa may tumong na mag-public speaking ka. You prepare your speech in advance in order for you to organize your speech into manageable units. Maorasan niyo ang sarili. In 5 minutes lang, 3 minutes lang, you can deliver your speech. Na dili makulang ang oras, pero dili sobra ang oras rather. So you need to also practice your speech until you become confident. If necessary, you memorize it, do it. Then study the venue of your presentation. What's my venue, same on presentation? Is there an podium? Is there an audience, etc., etc.? And of course, anticipate possible adverse situations. Anticipate the possible hindrance or asa ka mamali in order for you to have enough preparation. Remember this phrase as stay ready so that you won't have to be ready. It's something difficult, tasking, responsibility na siya. But if you do it, you will reap the rewards by being able to have it before it is even asked of you. Basically, you have the answers before the questions were ever thrown at your head. Stay ready so that you won't have to be ready. Okay? Another, consider the following suggestions and insights to help you gain self-confidence. How do we do that? First, on the appointed time of your speech, make sure you arrive early to settle yourself. Ayaw ka late, kaya para ikaw mag-rather, ikaw mag-correction. It is a powerful opening statement, right? A speaker should deliver his speech with reasonable pacing. Ayaw kauna in words. Ayaw magpaspas tayo. Use a reasonable pacing that is in accordance to your own style, to your own comfort, and to your own competence. Use small notes as a guide and approach the rostrum or the podium with enthusiasm. It will never help you with your speech. Okay, another, your sincerity is very important. When I say speech, public speaking, speak from the heart. Strike a point. Speak from the heart. Be sincere in what you're talking about. You need to believe. You need to advocate, and you need to proceed for what you're taught in order for you to get what you. I don't put the network flower anymore. Remember, KISS. Keep it short and simple. And then up to your audience's emotions. Remember what the poet said? They won't remember what you said. They won't remember how you said it. Right? They will remember how you made them feel. Therefore, one way of doing it is to maintain eye contact with the audience. Right? Now, you also need to keep your audience involved. So asking questions, rhetoric questions, or questions where they can just simply respond. We say yes or no, magtanong ng good, gently. You need to also deliver your speech as natural as possible. As much as you can. Dapat natural lang din siya magbawasin. Dili pinubos, dili ka lang ikaw OA, over-rapot tayo at delivery. So, by delivering it naturally, we see now that the mastery of the content is there and the mastery of the delivery is also there. Because you also need to vary the tone of your voice. Ayaw monotonous. There should be rising and falling. There should be like kanta. No? You're not actually saying it. You're just simply talking to your audience. And you need to use gestures and nonverbal cues in order for you to better emphasize what you're talking about. Remember, your audience wants your conclusion. What's your style? What's your conclusion? Is it an open-ended conclusion where you ask a question? Or is it something, that is more interesting and that is more captivating? You need to have a conclusion. Okay. Finally, a natural supplement for public speaking is to lose your stage fright. Saon mani. Remember that an exaggerated fear of public appearance is considerably stage fright. Stage fright is the anxiety, the fear, or the persistent phobia, which may be aroused in an individual confident manner to or perform in front of an audience, whether actually, potentially, will determine whether or not talagang phobia niya. But there are people na phobia. So you need to determine what is your fear, what is your anxiety, what are the possible stressors when you talk in front. Okay. For example, a phobia or an unreasonable fear is caused by being called by many names, such as, or is being called by many names, such as stage fright, speech anxiety, shyness, fear of speaking, performance anxiety, speech phobia, wherein the fear of public speaking can have a negative effect on careers and the ability to get things done. And therefore, on your success, madamay po siya. So as teachers, labi na in English, we cannot afford to have unreasonable fear or kalibitaw phobia in talking. Kasi nga, that is our life, that is our cream of the crop. So you need to be kalibitaw, you need to master yourselves. Kailangan maanad ka. Speaking is part and parcel of our tasks as English teachers or as graduates majoring in English. Kasi nga, it will definitely impact our careers and opportunities as well as our capability to do the things that other people are very good at. Kasi nga, they disregard the phobia or the unreasonable fear that they have. Okay. So, with that being said, this usually happens kapag ka nasa harapan. Stage fear. Quality of the performance, times practiced, actual performance, final rehearsal. Times practiced, karagahan. Quality performance na at the peak. Final rehearsal. Para pag-perform saying practice and because of stage fear, naubok, kabagan, nadagmak pa. So basically, ang performance niya is pababa compared to the times that he practiced. Kasi nga, there is the presence of stage fear. So maski pagkapila ni mo i-perform, nindot na yung performance, tapos pag abot sa final rehearsal, you're at the peak. You are not able to continue your momentum, energy, and delivery pacing on the final rehearsal. Ultimately, very good ka sa actual performance. Low ka, di ka memorize, magkauntaon kasi mo words, etc. So, what happens when you have to speak in public? Okay. When you speak in public class, probably you will experience a mental knockdown. Your heartbeat will be faster than usual. You will feel your blood run to your head and to your cheeks. Kasi nga, there is anxiety, there is now adrenaline. You will feel loss of breath. And of course, the sensation, just like butterflies flying into your stomach, etc., etc. Okay, now in considering this, you need to remember that there are different stage fears. We need to identify stage fears. Most people experience stage fear, right? That's a given. Stage fright affects most people in physical ways, such as dry mouth, tight throat, sweaty hands, cold hands, shaky hands, nausea, fast pulse, shaky knees, trembling lips, etc., etc. So therefore, stage fright is also considered fear of success. Because when you're successful, you will make sure that you are going to be used to the stage, used to talking in front of the people, in front of an audience, in order for you to grab opportunities and make the most of them. Therefore, you need to look into the following. And of course, try to mitigate the following. What are the possible causes of this? Number one, inadequate preparation. Kakapangandaw kung sa imong istorya. Number two, fear of being judged. Your insecurities will lead to your downfall kasi nga you don't want to be judged by other people. You have unfamiliarity with the audience or the environment. And there's lack of knowledge about public speaking. How do you speak in front? How do you determine what could be and what could not be? And most importantly, how do you determine what ways are more effective in order for your message to come across your audience? There are also feelings of inadequacy. Kaya ba na ako? Am I a master of this already? Nakastudy na ba dyan ko? Confident na ba dyan ko? Etc. etc. Of course, the fear of the unknown. Kasi posibleng hitabo while you are delivering your speech. Kasi posibleng mahitabo while you are delivering your message. Kasi posibleng reaction sa mga audience. There are also considerations of negative past experiences. Allow me to share. When I hosted my very first wedding event, that was in 2015, ang nabilin lang yun was the groom and the bride and ang ilang parents. And I had a lot of part in my program. Kasi nanguli na sila after the number. So that was really a bad experience. Kasi it was my first day and I did not know what to do. I thought that I would be hindered because I felt like dili mao akong preparation. I was too lax. I felt like I was judged heavily. Kasi nga di ko kaila sa crowd. Iba ko nag-MC wedding. O kabalo sa audience. I keep the audiences staying in the venue until the end of the program. I don't know the environment of function halls. Of course, I had, enough knowledge about public speaking. I wasn't afraid of how am I going to deliver what can happen. But then again, that particular experience really shook me off and really knocked me on my out of my balance, out of my focus. That it really took me time before I could go back and deliver speeches and do posting. It took me, I think, a couple of 8 months. Kasi nga, that was a very negative past experience. So that was my stage fright. But I was still hosting in school kasi wala akong choice. Pero kung yun ka dream wedding, maulaw ko, mahadlok ko, kaya ba na ako? So that was my question all the time. How do you overcome it? Okay. How you can do it? Number one, be extremely well prepared by organizing your speech notes. Magdala script. Absolutely. Memorize your opening statement. If you have to practice, then practice and practice. Post and post until you become a good public speaker. Join and join competitions until you become a good public speaker. Fail, lose, try again. That's it. Fail, learn, try again. Now, especially practicing this so you can spit out a few minutes of your program no matter how nervous you are. Kasi nga, there is always or should always be anticipation for hard and easy questions. Remember when I said you need to stay ready so that you have to be ready. You need to anticipate. Lisod o dali ng mga pangutana. Because if you do, then ultimately you're giving yourself the benefit of the doubt. You're giving yourself a time in order for you to have enough preparation by having different techniques such as speaking notes or memorization of your speech, and then you were able to rehearse it. And then you are not able to anticipate what could possibly go wrong or what could possibly go the very best. Okay. Now, how do you, all right? How can you do all of these things? Number one, be in the room early. Ayaw ang late. Para di ka mawala sa passing. Be in the room early. Kung may galing 8 o'clock, at least 8 o'clock, anak kami. Ayaw nagpakabot of 8:30 kasi you will miss a significant 30 minutes of what will happen. Yawn to relax your throat. Or half mouth stretching. Open your mouth in order for you to have it relaxed. Paanat in opening your mouth and speak. Do that. Breathe deeply, evenly, and slowly for several minutes. Inhale, exhale. Tinawag tayo, inhale, exhale. Ayaw pag, kasi you are going to have anxiety attack. So breathe, inhale, exhale. Inhale, slow, steady, but you're able to determine how you can have your pacing, madali ka madali ka visually power. You do not need to drink coffee. You do not need to drink coffee, but there are some people who are best kasi anad sila. So I don't recommend any of it, especially if you're not. Okay, go somewhere private and warm up your voice, your muscles, etc. Before I just go distant places from the stage, pero na-realize na ko kalash yung oras and it's not really realistic all the time. So what I do is I just go to a corner, I open my mouth, stretching core, and then I pray. That's what I usually do. Okay. Here are some very useful techniques. Stage fright strategies. So you need to try not to hold the microphone by hand in the first minute. You just let it be. Don't hold notes if it is necessary. The audience can see them shaking. So you just let it be. Use 3x5 parts instead. Ultimately, and always use eye contact. It will make you feel less isolated because you know who are the people inside the room with you. Look at the friendliest faces in the para di ka wala. Tanawa to kasi pinaka-friendly. Itong naminaw sa mga, itong nasigig smile. You look at them. And then joke about your nervousness. What's the right wine to go with fingernails? Or, nabuang. Gestures needed that people will be able to understand and people will be able to reflect so that you won't feel aloof. That's what you call stage fright strategies to overcome this. Now, practice is very essential. Kasi nga, sabi nga dito, practice takes you from this, to this. Successful, happy, contented, satisfied with the performance that he or she has given in the public speaking that he has or she has made. Now, therefore, when we consider this, remember that in order for you to best, to best your anxiety, etc., you need to practice. Aside from learning all of these, you need to practice in order for you to go from this to this. And more importantly, if you are able to, what we call this, if you're able to determine what makes you happy, what makes you contented, satisfied as a public speaker after all the preparations that you've done. As you evaluate yourself, you're going to find satisfaction. Now, yes, I've done my part. Kaya di ay na. Okay? So that will help you ultimately determine how you can become an effective public speaker with the discussions that we've had. Now, make sure that you're able to jot down notes in preparation for our final exam, for our semi-final examination. Thank you very much and God bless.